with your host from the University of Oklahoma, Bud Wilkerson. Presented by your National Guard, America's missile-age Minutemen. Trained, equipped, and ready to defend you and your country. On the ground, in the air, in any local or national emergency. Now to give you an inside look at some of the nation's most popular sports, here's Bud Wilkerson.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be with you in your homes again. We're awfully fortunate in having one of baseball's immortals with us, Allie Reynolds, the great pitcher of the New York Yankees, who's going to talk to us a little bit about baseball and pitching in particular. Allie, it's awfully nice to have you here, and I'd like to have you meet Howard Newman.
Thank you, Bud. How are you, Howard?
Good to know you, Allie. I know your young ball players are going to be interested to hear what one of the great pitchers of all time has to say to you.
Well, let's hope so, at least.
What's that? That's the first line of defense. What's that? The National Guard. Guard? Guard against what? The unexpected. What? The unexpected. In times of emergency such as hurricanes. The National Guard is first on the scene to aid victims. Gee. In fact, any kind of disaster, even floods, the National Guard is always there. Gee. Even in case of a sneak attack, the Guard has the latest jets ready to take off instantly. Tanks ready to roll, or the latest equipment in readiness. Gee. And even foot soldiers. Hey, there's Uncle Louie. Sure, the Guard is made up of the men of the community. For the good of the community. Hey, how come you know so much about the National Guard anyhow? 'Cause my pop told me. He's a corporal in the National Guard. Gee, how about that?
Well, Allie, when you were playing, you were noted for your fastball, and what does it take to throw fast or throw hard?
Well, Bud, I think it's just a combination of coordination, we'll say, of arm and body action, being able to get the maximum of both together.
Well, how do you do it?
Well, there's a thing that I think is most important is lead with the elbow in the matter of throwing, with the correlated move. I might just give you a short illustration.
Yeah, I don't quite understand that lead with the elbow.
Well, first you're on the mound, of course, and you start with your wind-up. Then as you come through, you see I'm back in here?
Mm-hmm.
See that elbow pop back?
Mm-hmm.
And you see that my body has already come through before the throw.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a mistake you'll find in most youngsters. They try to throw and step at the same time. But now I have my body firmly set on the pitching rubber, and I'm able to drive off that rear foot. And as I come through, you note that the elbow is still leading.
Mm-hmm.
And from there on, it's just a wrist flip.
Allie, I had never noticed how far that elbow led that hand before.
But that is the most important part of the activity. The leading elbow gives you so much more flip.
Mm-hmm. Gee, you get almost a foot and a half or 2 feet there, don't you?
That's absolutely it.
movement.
And it's not only important with the speed of the ball, but it gives you that good live action on the end of the ball. Makes it either take off or dip.
Well, Allie, do you have a different motion when you throw to home and then when you try to catch a runner off first base?
There isn't a lot of difference in the motion. Of course, the rule specifies, let me demonstrate this too, I'm holding a man on, that you cannot deceive the hitter, neither can you deceive the base runner. So the good base runner, naturally, will watch your left heel on the right-hand pitcher.
Why your left heel?
That's the first part of your body that moves, regardless if you're throwing home or if you're throwing to first. Now, let me demonstrate, and you watch this. I'm in position. All right, I'm going to throw home. Which move first?
The heel.
All right, now we'll go to first. Now which move?
Mm-hmm. Well, then a good base runner is going to concentrate on the heel. He won't look at your whole body. He'll just look right at that heel.
Well, I think they have it down to that special point. Now, when you're trying to really improve in athletics, that's the way they do. They get it real technical, and they work at it very hard.
Mm-hmm. Allie, how do you hold the ball in your glove to keep it hidden as you get ready to pitch?
I'm glad you asked that because I think that's very, very important. It's a formation of a habit that should be started early, and it's a tough one to break if you get off on the wrong foot. Be sure that you place the ball well up into the web of the glove.
High up into
the glove. The idea for that is this side of the glove will hide it from a third base coach. The thumb will hide it from the first base coach, and they're usually the fellows that pick up your pitches.
Why don't you show that to the camera a little bit, Allie? Turning the glove either way to show that neither of them can see the ball.
Neither can see it that way. Then all you have to contend with the batter is to not do this or this on different pitches, and that's very common.
Uh-huh.
And then as you go back, be sure you don't open up this way, because you've covered up fine to start with and then given it away right at the wrong moment. Be sure to keep it in there tight.
Allie, would you go through the whole motion once hiding the ball for us and concentrating on the glove position so that the people can all watch that?
All right, I'll do that. We'll do this one with nobody on. The usual position that a pitcher likes to be in and seldom is. First, we'll take our little rock. This is just a coordinated move to get your arm and body movements together. And you're into the glove right here close. And continue up, and you never relax that until you start into your throw. Then you're out here. See, my body's through, and my arm is coming.
Nobody's seen the ball to right there.
That's
It's
good.
remarkable. It really is.
Then you see this elbow coming through.
Mm-hmm.
From right there on is your speed.
Well, you know, Allie, as you finished with that motion, you were on balance, almost like a football or basketball player on defense.
Well, Bud, that's very, very important. A good fielding pitcher can probably win or save yourself 4 or 5 games during the play of a year. And you have to be in a position to follow through. Actually, throwing the ball is only a part of the pitcher's activities. Fielding is very, very important.
Well, what sort of position should a young pitcher try to take?
Well, after you're finished with your pitch, you're in a position like this. First, we'll say is a measure of self-protection, because some of the balls are hit back very hard. Then you should be in position with your weight under control to go either direction. Any pitcher, any right-hand pitcher or left-hand, we'll say, with the ball hit to this side, first base side, that bag at first base is his. First break is right toward first base because he has to take the throw over there if the first baseman has to receive the ball.
You should step right at the base.
Right directly at it and go into the line, I would say 10 or 12 feet before reaching first, and then turn.
Mm-hmm.
That way you block off the runner and you give yourself a little better target for the first baseman to hit. You're not coming in at such a sharp angle.
Mm-hmm. How about balls to the right?
To the right, naturally, you have no base to cover over there. But you should still be set on slow hit balls because that's a tough one for the infielders to come in and pick up.
Mm-hmm. Allie, one of the things that's always puzzled me, who actually calls the pitches, the pitcher or the catcher?
Well, that depends on who has the most experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in my case, it just happened that I was more experienced than Yogi Berra, so I did call the pitches.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
I guess you being responsible for it, what happens maybe makes it a little better for you to call them.
well, I liked it that way. It doesn't always happen to be the case. Now, Vic Raschi did go along with Berra calling the pitches.
Mm-hmm.
Just so happened that Ed Lopat and I mentioned those names as pitchers who did pitch for the Yankees at least. One's still there.
Well, Allie, a lot of young pitchers I know wonder what they should work on. What should a young pitcher try to learn to do?
Well, the important thing to a pitcher is control. You have 8 men to aid you on the field, and if they don't get to accept the chance, as in the case of a walk, there's no way to get him out. It's the death of a pitcher quickly.
We have a lot of little leaguers looking in, Allie, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. What pitches should they learn how to throw?
Well, we'll go right back to the point of control. They're youngsters, they're beginners. They should get one pitch that they can get over. The easiest one is the fastball. Work with that and in one position. Don't play around with sidearm at 3/4. The natural position that they throw from. Start with that and learn to get that ball over. Then work with a change of speeds or a change of pace, as they call it.
Well, how about the curve? Shouldn't they try to throw a curveball?
But I would say not. A curve ball is thrown with an unorthodox motion, and it's very strenuous on your arm.
How do you throw the curve?
Well, it's a wrist snap. Instead of following through behind the ball and getting the rotation in this manner, you get up to here and you pop that wrist.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that that's very strenuous, and for a youngster whose muscles aren't developed, I'm afraid it would be just a little tough on him, and it would be a chance he could injure his arm where he couldn't play later on. They should wait until they're a little more mature, say 15 or 16. The muscles are a little better formed and conditioned to take that step in baseball.
How about a slider, Allie? I've heard an awful lot of talk about that. Is there such a pitch? Or
Well, Bud, I'm glad you brought that up. You're probably speaking in reference to this type of baseball. A slider is a pitch that's thrown like a fastball.
Mm-hmm.
and it moves away. It's like we'll say a nickel curve. And I'm afraid it isn't a pitch that would work very well in this caliber baseball. It's for a big free swinger that has been given the full baseball treatment. Otherwise, it's just a reactionary pitch, and I think the good curveball would work much better here.
Well, if you're not a very good hitter, you have to hit the slider. On the other hand, if you're real good looking for the change of pace all the time, it will puzzle you. Is that right?
That's true. Very true.
Allie, another thing that always has bothered me, I've gone to baseball games where the pitcher has really controlled things beautifully, and along about the 6th or 7th inning, for almost no reason at all, at least it's apparent, the manager will replace pitchers. What causes that?
Well, Bud, I could give you the Yankee aspect of that operation.
That's good enough for me.
They base their pitching on 100 pitches per game. They feel that a man can go under full power that far. Now, there will be a slight variance depending on stamina and strength of the pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
If he gets into a ball game where he throws 30 to 35 pitches in one inning, they know he's not going to make the ball game. And even though he's in control and looks in pretty good shape, he's constantly in contact with the pitching coach and the manager. And when he begins to tire a wee bit, then they bring in the new man to preserve the game.
You know, I just had a ride in this Iron Giant, and believe me, I can see why training for the National Guard is a young man's game. You've got to learn fast and have plenty of stamina to keep up with this rigorous training. A guardsman in the armored divisions has to be an expert in diesel engines, radio, and gunnery. In the infantry divisions, he has to learn leadership. He must master the art of artillery and hundreds of other combat and support-type unit work. And now they have taken over the mighty Nike bases and are experts in radar, rocketry, and mathematics. But more than all this, a National Guardsman is a patriotic defender of this country, a volunteer who is ready, willing, and able to serve you in case of a local or national emergency. You can sleep well tonight. Your National Guard is awake. Well, Allie, in any game, there's always one thing that seems to be the most important, and for a pitcher, what's the hardest thing to learn?
Well, that's not too hard for me to answer, at least my idea. I would say that the toughest thing for a pitcher to do is to master himself. And until he can do that, he's not a pitcher. You have to know what you can do, how you can best go about it, and regardless of the results or the activities that go from your pitching, you have to continue on with that peak performance. If the last pitch you threw was a home run, you don't quit there. You just apply yourself and go on. You don't forget those mistakes that you make, but you try not to make them again. It's just like in everyday life. Should you make a mistake, you don't just stop living then. You remember those things, and that's the way we improve, by eliminating those causes as they come along. Well, that's wonderful advice from one of the immortals of baseball, Allie Reynolds of the New York Yankees. It's been a great pleasure, Allie, having you here, and I'd like to thank all of you for letting us come into your homes.
Inside Sports with Bud Wilkinson and Howard Newman is directed and photographed by Ned Hockman and is a Bud Wilkinson production. Inside Sports is brought to you as a public service by this station in cooperation with your National Guard.